The Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges used to dedicate all his weekends to studying medieval Scandinavian sagas, and I've always wondered what it was about this northern land and its early literature that ignited his imagination. Sitting here now, on this bench, looking at all these strangers passing by and at the sea stretching out beyond, reminds me of a story by Borges that perhaps offers a clue. As far as I recall, the story begins with a man walking heavily across an empty plain. That's how I remember it anyway. I read the story more than 15 years ago, so perhaps some of its details now escape me. In any case, the first image that the story impressed upon my mind is that one, a man who walks. Like the man walking across the lawn there to the left. Well, to be more precise, more loyal to the memory, it's not an entire man that I remember, but a mere fragment of a man, his 2 feet. The feet, loosely clad in weather-worn, leather-strapped sandals, take slow, tired steps, locked by gravity to the ground beneath. The toes are covered in grime, the heels scarred by deep cracks, the skin enveloping the instep and ankles scorched by the relentless equatorial sun. This man is not on a grassy lawn. He walks across a desert. A few scattered naked bushes, their arthritic branches snaking upward like the fingers of a beggar, are the only punctuation marks to an otherwise monotonous landscape. The man may as well be walking across the sea, across an empty page, or across a mind battered by amnesia. I remember some words in the story's epigraph. All novelty is but oblivion. And I remember that the title of the story is The Immortal. What I don't remember, though, is where this man, the immortal, is headed, where he's coming from, or why he's walking. Is there any dialogue, or just a single distant narrative voice? I don't remember. Nor do I recall other characters in the story except maybe a dog, or maybe just the man's memory of a dog that barks across some of the story's lines now and then. Perhaps I don't remember a single meaningful element of the story's plot. In fact, I might just admit that I don't know the story at all. There is one more element, however, that I do remember, though it seems to be stored in a more obscure and very different area of my brain. This element is the idea of mathematical infinity. I think that it was while reading this story, at the age of 14 or 15, that for the first time I understood something about the otherwise ungraspable concept of infinity. Borges' version of mathematical infinity is simple. According to him, someone who's immortal is destined to live all the experiences of every human being, real or imagined, on account of his or her infinite lives. This is, of course, more of a literary equation than a mathematical one. But it's no less staggering to the imagination than, say, the idea that parallel lines meet, eventually, in infinity. The simple notion that, if someone were to live forever, he or she would experience all the elements that compose the lives of every other person. The instant of joy before a boy jumps into a body of water, the nagging itch of frustration felt by the washerwoman in a 17th century village, scrubbing a piece of cloth against a rock by a stream, a sudden stomach vertigo in a peasant in the 13th century or the 21st century walking down a steep cliff toward a village, the satisfied morning erection of a petty politician stepping out of bed, the anxious tenderness swelling in a mother's lungs when she smells her newborn's head every night, the almost metaphysical melancholy of the shoeshine boy, crouching, leaning against a wall in a train station, waiting for a customer to harbor in and make his day's pay, or the regular voyeur, sitting on a public bench in a crowded park, fishing for a pair of feet to look at, just because they're there, all those feet, and they're simple, but at the same time enigmatic, so maybe it's tempting to study them and imagine further. To imagine, for example, fragments of the lives that every single person that walks past, feet steady or halting, has lived or will live. Like that person right there. Or to imagine the lives they each may have lived, but will not, and the lives of the people they know, as well as those whom they will never know. Our minds cannot absorb, in one blow, the entirety of what surrounds us, and our memories cannot retain all the details of a story, a painting, or a simple moment. But we do have the ability to latch onto at least one detail, perhaps as insignificant as a pair of feet. And if our imaginations did, for just a moment, emulate Hermes' feet, the Olympian god who wore those winged sandals that allowed him to travel more easily between the world of the mortals and the eternal world of the gods, communicating the two, what message would we carry over? Which, among the passing strangers, all their beautiful or terrible feet, could be fixed in our minds and become a kind of vessel communicating our experience of this one moment with, for example, the feet of that immortal man in Borges' story, walking endlessly across a desert plain. Those immortal feet, which mathematically at least, are also our grandmother's feet, always carefully hidden from view inside a well-worn pair of canvas tennis shoes, or the feet of our child, still small and a little chubby, trying to slip into a pair of frustrating rubber boots, or our lovers, asleep under a sheet, toes tilting sideways in a warm, familiar way, or our fathers, toenails yellowing and crooked, soles hardened with calluses, or the feet of that young stranger, slender, muscular, and mildly eroticizing, or the always mysterious feet of that person we may have loved, if only we had crossed paths at the right time. Or Borges' feet, the skin thin and almost translucent, the veins that pump slow blood into them as he writes the immortal, purple and blue, and branching and wise, like all the decisions we have to take every day and which keep leading us steadily on toward the one life we will live, and always further away from all the other possible lives we leave behind.